Marina Mabrey has broken her silence finally about shoving Caitlin Clark.
We're not doing this. Apparently, Marina Mabrey has now come forward and said she overreacted with the Caitlin Clark foul. Overreacted? I feel like you're trying to cover your ass because now they're talking about investigation.
Marina Mabrey waited weeks to talk about it, and when she finally did, the first words out of her mouth weren't an apology. They were an excuse. The shove that sent Caitlin Clark to the floor wasn't a hard foul in the heat of battle. It was after the whistle with no ball in play and no reason to even be near her. Yet there was the league's biggest star, scraped across the face and lying on the hardwood, while Mabry stood over her.
Watch when Caitlin Clark is trying to create some space. It looked like she just got hit in the eye there.
Now she's saying she probably overreacted a little. A little? That's like saying an airbag deploys a little in a car crash. The replay doesn't lie. It wasn't clumsy defense, it was a hit delivered with purpose. So why talk now? Why admit to anything when the league already moved on? Maybe it's because people didn't move on, and every time that clip plays, it chips away at her image. And what she says next makes the whole thing even harder to believe.
He got upgraded to a flagrant 2 because of the way the fans reacted to it, Mabry said on the shove on Clark. They gave me a tech for it initially. I don't care. Honestly, I really don't. Obviously, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to go after certain players for certain, SHIT. She said, me and Caitlin were cool. She added, me and Caitlin have competed against each other in the playoffs. She threw me into the benches in the quarterfinals. We didn't go after her for it.
Like, subscribe and comment if this so-called apology sounds like damage control, not regret. Because the next part of her story will have you rolling your eyes. Mabry's defense was simple on the surface, but full of holes the moment it left her mouth. She claimed she was protecting a teammate, and that Clark once threw her into the benches during last year's playoffs. The problem? That playoff moment happened in live play, with the ball in motion and contact being part of the game.
Mabry follows it up, and Clark pushes her. That's going to be a second foul.
This shove was after the whistle, outside the action, and without any basketball reason behind it. The "we were cool" narrative collapses the second the clip is played side by side with her words, showing a deliberate move that had nothing to do with defending anyone. Even her body language tells the story. No urgency to check on her teammate, no glance at the officials, only the satisfaction of making a statement. And the more she insists it wasn't personal, the more it sounds like exactly that.
Overreacted? I feel like you're trying to cover your ass because now they're talking about investigations, and now you're terrified. Now you're scared. Now you're shook. That was the real you. You're a snake. It is what it is. The game before that, when you saw Clark, you stopped her from signing autographs so you could hug her.
Because when the timeline is hugs one game, blindsiding the league's biggest star the next, there's no teammate defense that explains it away. What happened with Mabry isn't an isolated moment. It's part of a growing highlight reel of cheap shots aimed at Caitlin Clark, and none of them look like basketball plays. Kennedy Carter's infamous shove from behind came with no ball in sight, just Clark jogging up the court before getting blindsided. Diamond DeShields charged her like an NFL safety on a blitz. Again, nowhere near the ball. Angel Reese's accidental elbows have a habit of finding Clark's head, and JC Sheldon's poke to the eye felt more like a WWE heel move than anything from a WNBA playbook. The pattern is obvious. These hits happen outside the flow of the game with an edge that says it's about the player, not the play. And when one incident becomes 2, then 3, then 4, the argument for coincidence collapses. This is a trend, and Mabry's shove is just the latest chapter in a story the league can't pretend it hasn't noticed.
This incredible inability to deal with the facts and to state the obvious. It is astounding to me how Kathy Engelbert doesn't come out after the Marina Mabrey hit and say that's unacceptable. The refs got it wrong. Okay, should have been kicked out then. You weren't, but now I'm going to kick you out. You're suspended for another game or 2. That's just unacceptable behavior for someone who's so important to the league or to any player, right? They can't do that. They seem paralyzed.
The repeated targeting of Caitlin Clark has now pushed the conversation beyond sports and into the realm of workplace safety, with some calling it a textbook example of a hostile work environment. The Wall Street Journal ran with the story. Major outlets like Fox News, Jason Whitlock, and Dan Doich weighed in, and the narrative spread fast. If constant off-the-ball cheap shots happened in any other profession, it wouldn't be dismissed as part of the job. Shoving a coworker into the copy machine or poking them in the eye would be grounds for HR, not applause from teammates. Yet in the WNBA, these actions are brushed off with weak penalties and quick excuses, even when the target is the league's most valuable draw.
The game before that, when you saw Clark, you stopped her from signing autographs so you could hug her. I would have thought y'all was cool. Now, all of a sudden, fast forward to the Connecticut game, she got Sheldon over here. You're knocking her to the ground. Tina Charles is wagging her finger at her like she's her mom's or something. That's what y'all do. Y'all only won 5 games this season. I mean, what else y'all been doing this year? The highlight for the Connecticut Sun was injuring Caitlin Clark.
The fact that such behavior is tolerated says as much about the culture around Clark as it does about the players delivering the hits. And each unpunished incident reinforces the idea that she's fair game for anything outside the rulebook. The league's handling of these incidents has been nothing short of timid, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's silence after the Mabry shove was louder than any official statement could have been. Instead of publicly condemning the hit or issuing a suspension, the WNBA let the moment pass with only an in-game upgrade to a flagrant 2, long after the foul occurred.
He got upgraded to a flagrant 2 because of the way the fans reacted to it, Mabry said on the shove on Clark. They gave me a tech for it initially. I don't care. Honestly, I really don't. Obviously, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to go after certain players for certain, SHIT. She said, me and Caitlin were cool. She added, me and Caitlin have competed against each other in the playoffs. She threw me into the benches in the quarterfinals. We didn't go after her for it.
No ejection when it happened. No follow-up punishment. And this isn't a one-time oversight. It's part of a pattern where players who target Clark face minimal consequences, emboldening others to push the line further. Behind closed doors, the reluctance to act is often chalked up to politics and optics, with decision-makers worried about alienating certain players or inflaming social narrative. But every time the league tiptoes around accountability, it signals that star protection is negotiable, and that sends a dangerous message both to players and to the fans watching these hits pile up. When Mabry shoved Clark after the whistle, it didn't go unanswered for long. Sophie Cunningham, known as the Fever's enforcer, made sure there was a response. But unlike Mabry, her shot came during the live play. It was physical, it was hard, but it was within the flow of the game, and it sent a clear message. Mess with one of ours and you'll feel it back. The difference between Sophie's hit and Mabry's couldn't be clearer. One was a legitimate basketball play that doubled as payback. The other was an unprovoked cheap shot that had nothing to do with the ball. That contrast resonated with fans, turning Cunningham into a hero for defending her teammate, while reinforcing the idea that there's a line between enforcing and dirty play. And now, every time the Fever and Sun are set to meet again, that moment is part of the pre-game tension, because neither side is forgotten, and the crowd knows it. Clark's groin injury is almost healed, and when she steps back on the court, her focus won't be on press conferences or Instagram captions. It will be on the scoreboard. Payback for her isn't shoving someone back. It's dropping 30 points and making sure the other team spends the night chasing shadows. That's why her return has the league buzzing, because every Fever Sun game from now on will carry the shadow of that shove, replayed over and over before tip-off. The crowd will be louder, the cameras will be sharper, and every glance between Clark and Mabry will be studied like a court case. And while Mabry talks about being cool with Clark, nothing erases the memory of that after-whistle hit. The next time they share the floor, no one will be watching the scoreboard at first. They'll be watching to see if Mabry can keep her hands to herself, and if Clark decides to settle the score in the most humiliating way possible, by winning. Mabry's public comments reek of timing, landing only after weeks of backlash, media scrutiny, and growing talk of investigations into how Clark has been treated. If this was about genuine remorse, it wouldn't have taken national headlines and social media outrage to get a statement. It would have happened the night of the foul. Everything about her tone feels like reputation management, not reflection, from the downplaying of the shove to the recycled "we were cool" defense that falls apart under replay. What's left is a player caught between protecting her image and admitting what everyone already knows. It was personal, and it was intentional. Fans can smell the spin, media outlets have kept the story alive, and with every replay, the narrative gets harder to escape. Whether the WNBA does anything about it or not, the label sticks. And no post-game handshake or carefully worded quote is going to erase the fact that the shove heard around the league will follow Mabry for the rest of her career.